Hi guys, tonight, we are going to drift back through the centuries, leaving behind the soft hum of electricity, the gentle glow of your screens, and the climate-controlled comfort of your home. We are traveling to a time that is often romanticized in stories and films. Yet the reality of it was a slow, heavy, and deeply taxing existence. We are going to explore why a modern human, with our softened hands and our reliance on instant solutions, would find it nearly impossible to survive even a single day in the heart of the medieval era. But as we explore these hardships, we will do so with a voice that is steady and calm, designed to help you set aside the stresses of your own day and find a deep, heavy rest. This is a journey into a world of profound silence, biting cold, and a pace of life so slow it feels as though time itself has thickened like honey. As you listen to my voice, I want you to imagine the transition. Feel the weight of your modern blankets transform into something much heavier, much coarser, and much less forgiving. We are no longer in the 21st century. We are in a small, timber-framed dwelling, and the sun has not yet begun to rise. Imagine that you are waking up, but there is no alarm clock, no soft chime from a phone on a bedside table. There is only the absolute, crushing weight of a pre-industrial silence. In our modern world, we are never truly in silence. There is always the distant hum of a refrigerator, the far-off drone of a highway, or the buzz of a light bulb. Here, in this medieval room, the silence is so thick it feels like a physical presence. The only sound is the rhythmic, heavy breathing of other people nearby and the occasional rustle of straw. You are lying on a palliasse, a simple mattress stuffed with straw and dried heather. As you shift your weight, the straw beneath you crunches with a dry, hollow sound. It is not the soft, supportive foam you are used to. It is lumpy and uneven. In some places, the stalks of the straw poked through the coarse linen casing, scratching at your skin. It is a persistent, low-level discomfort that you cannot escape. The room is incredibly cold. The stone walls hold the chill of the damp earth, and the air you breathe out forms a faint, ghostly mist in the darkness. Your body feels stiff. Your joints ache from the hardness of the floor and the dampness that seems to have seeped into your very bones. Overnight, in the modern world, when we wake up cold, we reach for a thermostat or pull up a plush duvet. Here, the cold is a constant companion. It is a heavy, damp cold that clings to the wool of your tunic. You reach out a hand from under your thin wool cover, and the air feels like ice against your skin. There is no light. None at all. The windows, if there are any, are small slits covered with oiled cloth, or perhaps wooden shutters that have been bolted tight against the night air. The darkness is total. It is a velvety, ink-black darkness that makes you feel as though you are floating in an endless void. You try to sit up, and the straw beneath you groans. Your first instinct is to find a light, but there is no switch. To have light, you must create it. You have to find the hearth in the center of the room. You move slowly, feeling your way across the dirt floor. The ground beneath your bare feet is cold and slightly uneven. You can feel the grit of the earth and the occasional stray piece of straw. The air in the room smells of many things, all of them heavy and earthy. There is the lingering scent of wood smoke from the night before, pungent, acrid smell that hangs in the rafters. There is the smell of damp wool, a sheep-like musky odor that never truly leaves the clothing. And beneath that, there is the smell of the earth itself, and the faint, unmistakable scent of the livestock huddled in the lianto, just on the other side of the wall. You find the hearth. It is a circle of stones on the floor. The ashes are cold, but if you dig deep enough with a small iron poker, you might find a single glowing ember kept alive under a layer of gray soot. This is your first task of the day, and it is a slow one. You must coax that tiny spark into a flame. You gather small shavings of wood and dried moss. You blow on the ember, a slow, steady breath. The ash puffs up in a small cloud, landing on your hands and face. You feel the dryness of it. Eventually, A tiny tongue of orange flame licks at the moss. It is a small victory, but it takes minutes of focused, patient effort. In your modern life, fire is an afterthought. Here, fire is the difference between life and death, between a warm meal and a frozen belly. As the fire grows, it casts long, flickering shadows against the walls. The light is orange and dim, barely reaching the corners of the room. This is the only light you will have until the sun is high. Your eyes struggle to adjust. The smoke from the fire doesn't all go out the hole in the roof. Much of it lingers, making your eyes water and your throat feel scratchy. This is the air you will breathe, all day thick, with the residue of burning oak and peat. Now, consider your clothing. You do not have a wardrobe of soft cottons and breathable synthetics. You have wool. The wool is thick and heavy, woven by hand. It has not been softened by industrial processes. It is scratchy and rough. When you pull your tunic over your head, you feel the fibers biting into your shoulders and neck. It is a constant, irritating sensation that a modern human would find maddening within an hour. The wool is also slightly damp. In this climate, nothing ever feels truly dry. The moisture of the English or French countryside hangs in the air, and it settles into the fabric of your clothes, making them feel heavy and cold against your skin. You need water. In your modern home, you turn a handle, and clear water flows instantly. Here, water is a physical burden. You must take a wooden bucket, heavy even when empty, and walk to the well or the nearest stream. The walk is slow. The path is muddy and slick with the morning dew. Your leather shoes, if you have them, have no arch support and no rubber soles. They are simple envelopes of hide that turn slippery on the wet grass. You feel every stone and every root through the thin leather. When you reach the water, you have to haul it up. The rope is rough and bites into your palms, leaving them red and stinging. The water is freezing, so cold it makes your fingers ache and turn a dull, ghostly white. As you carry the full bucket back to the house, the weight pulls at your shoulder, and the water sloshes over the rim, soaking your wool hose. Now, your legs are wet and cold, and they will stay that way for the rest of the day. There is no drying rack, no heater. You will simply walk until the heat of your body eventually evaporates the moisture, a process that takes hours of shivering. Think about the silence again as you walk back. There is no music, no podcasts, no news, just the sound of your own labored breathing and the rhythmic thud of your footsteps on the earth. The world feels immense and empty. Without the constant noise of the modern era, your thoughts feel louder, heavier. The pace of life is dictated entirely by the sun and the season. There is no rushing. You cannot rush the fire to start. You cannot rush the water to boil. You cannot rush the seasons to change. You are a prisoner of the slow, grinding machinery of nature. Breakfast is not a bowl of sugary cereal or a piece of toasted white bread. It is a bowl of pottage, a thick, gray stew of grains, peas, and perhaps some leeks or cabbage if the garden is yielding. It is bland. It is textured like wet cardboard. You eat it with a wooden spoon that has been used for years. The grain of the wood, smoothed by constant contact with mouths and broth. There is no sugar here, no salt, unless you are wealthy. The flavor is simply the flavor of the earth. You chew slowly because the grains are coarse and sometimes contain small bits of grit from the millstone that ground the flour. You can feel the sand-like texture between your teeth. It is a functional meal, designed only to provide the calories needed for the back-breaking labor ahead. You spend the morning in the fields or the workshop. Every movement is manual. There are no power tools. There is no automation. If you are digging, you are using a heavy wooden spade tipped with iron. The handle is rough and leaves splinters in your palms. Your muscles, unaccustomed to such relentless repetitive strain, begin to scream. A modern human's body is built for sitting, for typing, for walking on flat, paved surfaces. The medieval world demands a body of iron and leather. By mid-morning, Your back is a dull ache that never goes away. Your hands are stained with the dark, rich soil, and there is no soap to wash it away, only cold water and perhaps some abrasive sand. The hygiene, or lack thereof, is perhaps the most difficult thing for a modern person to endure. You feel a layer of grime on your skin that grows thicker as the day progresses. Sweat mixes with the dust of the fields and the soot from the fire. Your hair feels heavy and oily, clinging to your scalp. There is a persistent itch from the lice that live in the seams of your woolens. In our time, a stray hair or a smudge of dirt is a nuisance. In the medieval world, you are simply part of the ecosystem. You are never truly clean. The smell of your own body becomes a thick, musky veil that you eventually stop noticing. But the initial realization of it is overwhelming. It is a raw, animal smell. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to change. The sun, which has been your only clock, starts its slow descent. In the modern world, we ignore the sunset. We turn on the lights and continue our lives. But here, the sunset is a closing door. It is the end of the productive day. You find yourself hurrying to finish your tasks before the shadows become too long. The air grows colder again, the dampness rising from the ground like a slow-moving tide. You return to your dwelling. The fire has burned down to a few glowing coals. You must go through the process of reviving it again, blowing on the embers, feeding it small sticks. The room is hazy with smoke. Your evening meal is much like your breakfast, more pottage, perhaps a piece of dark, dense rye bread. The bread is so hard you have to soak it in the stew to make it edible. It tastes of yeast and smoke. You eat in near darkness, the only light coming from a single tallow candle, if you are lucky. The candle is made of animal fat. It doesn't smell like vanilla or lavender. It smells of scorched beef and old grease. It gutters and flickers, casting frantic shadows against the timber beams of the ceiling as you sit there. The exhaustion begins to settle over you like a heavy cloak. It is a deep, physical exhaustion that goes beyond being tired. It is a depletion of your very essence. Your limbs feel like lead. Your mind is slow, stripped of the constant stimulation of the modern world. There is nothing to do but sleep. There are no books to read in this light, no shows to watch, no one to call. There is only the fire, the smoke, and the encroaching dark. You prepare for bed. You do not change into soft pajamas. You simply remove your heavy outer tunic and crawl back onto the straw mattress. The straw is even lumpier now, the stalks having shifted during the day. You pull the heavy, scratchy wool blanket up to your chin. The cold of the room is biting now, and you huddle for warmth. You can hear the wind whistling through the gaps in the wattle and daub walls. It is a lonely, haunting sound. You lie there in the dark, and your modern mind tries to race, but there is nothing for it to latch on to. There is no news to worry about, no emails to answer. There is only the cold, the smell of the smoke, and the sound of the wind. You realize that you have survived the day, but you are broken by it. Your hands are blistered, your back is strained, your stomach is heavy with bland grain, and your skin is crawling with discomfort. You are an alien in this world of slow, heavy things. The darkness presses in. It is a weight that rests on your eyelids. You hear the scuttle of a mouse in the thatch above you. You hear the heavy sigh of a cow in the next room. These are the sounds of the Middle Ages. They are rhythmic and ancient. The fire pops, a single bright spark leaping into the air before vanishing into the soot. The glow of the embers is a deep, pulsing red, like the heartbeat of the house. You close your eyes, and the boundary between the modern world and this ancient one begins to blur. The discomfort of the straw begins to feel like a constant, grounding reality. The smell of the wood smoke becomes the smell of sleep. The cold is no longer an enemy, but a blanket of stillness that keeps the world quiet. You are sinking deeper into the mattress, your body finally surrendering to the relentless demands of the day. The silence of the night is absolute. beyond the walls of the hut. The forests and fields are shrouded in a darkness that no modern human has ever truly seen, a darkness so pure it feels holy. There are no lights on the horizon, no glowing cities. There is only the moon, if it is out, casting a silver light over the frost-covered world. Inside, the last of the embers fades from red to a dull, dusty gray. The room becomes as black as the earth outside. Your breathing slows. Each breath is a long, slow sigh that matches the rhythm of the dying fire. The heaviness in your limbs becomes a pleasant weight, pinning you to the earth. You are no longer a modern human, struggling against the past. You are simply a tired soul, finding rest in a world that never rushes. The textures of the wool, the scent of the peat, the chill of the air, they all merge into a single, monotonous hum that lulls you further and further away from the waking world. The night is long. It is a vast, empty space that you must cross before the sun returns to start the cycle again. But for now, there is only the rest. There is only the deep, heavy silence of a world without clocks. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of shadows. The memories of your modern life, the cars, the phones, the bright lights are fading like mist in the morning sun. They seem like dreams, far off and impossible. What is real is the straw, the wool, and the dark. The cold doesn't bother you anymore. You have found a small pocket of warmth beneath the heavy covers. Your mind is a blank slate, smoothed over by the sheer physical toll of the day. You are falling, slowly, into a well of dreamless sleep. The medieval world has claimed you for the night, wrapping you in its rough, honest embrace. The wind outside dies down, leaving the world in a state of perfect suspension. Even the mice have gone still. The house itself seems to settle into the earth, the timbers groaning softly as they cool. You are part of the house, part of the earth, part of the long, slow history of people who lived and breathed in this very way for 1,000 years. The hours pass in a blur of gray and black. The silence remains unbroken. You are resting with a depth that you have never known before, rest born of true physical labor and the total absence of artificial light. It is a heavy, restorative darkness, as the first, faint hint of gray begins to touch the eastern sky. Far beyond the hills, you are still deep in your slumber. The world is waiting. The frost is thick on the ground. The well is waiting. The hearth is waiting. But the sun is still a long way off, and the shadows are still long and deep. You remain there, suspended in the quiet, in the cold, in the heart of a time that moves for no one. The straw crunches softly as you shift in your sleep, a final tiny sound in the vast, waiting dark. The air remains still. The smoke has all cleared, leaving only the scent of cold ash in the coming morning. You are far away now, lost in the slow, boring reaches of a history that never ends. Drifting into the next day, without a sound, without a thought, without a care. You are waking up, but the waking is not sudden. It is a slow, grainy transition from the depths of a heavy, exhausted sleep into a reality that is cold, quiet, and profoundly still. Your eyes are still closed, and as you lie there, the first thing you notice is the texture of the world around you. Beneath your back, the straw in your palliasse has shifted throughout the night. It has compressed under your weight, forming hollows and ridges that mirror the shape of your body. Each time you take a slow, shallow breath, you can hear the faint, dry rustle of the stalks. It is a brittle sound, like the breaking of dead leaves in autumn. The straw is not soft. It is firm, and stalks of dried rye and wheat occasionally poke through the coarse linen weave of the mattress cover, pricking at the skin of your arms and neck as you lie there, perfectly still. You become aware of the temperature. The air in the room is not just cool. It is a living, heavy cold that has settled over everything like a layer of invisible dust. It is a damp cold that seems to have a weight of its own, pressing against your forehead and the tip of your nose. When you breathe out, The air leaves your lungs in a slow, ghostly plume of mist, barely visible in the dim light. You pull the heavy wool blanket closer to your chin. The wool is thick, scratchy, and infused with the scent of wood smoke and old lanolin. It is not the light, airy warmth of a modern duvet. It is a dense, burdensome heat that barely keeps the chill of the room at bay. The room smells of the earth and the passage of time. There is the persistent, low-hanging scent of the hearth, the smell of white ash and charred oak that has soaked into the very timbers of the walls. It is a dry, acrid smell that lingers in the back of your throat. Mingled with the smoke is the scent of dampness. The walls of this house are made of wattle and daba, lattice of woven hazel branches covered in a thick plaster of mud, straw, and animal dung. In the dampness of the early morning, the walls seem to exhale the scent of the wet earth they were made from. It is a rich, fermented smell, the smell of a building that is as much a part of the ground as the trees outside. And then, there is the smell of the animals. Just a few feet away, separated only by a low wooden partition, the livestock are waking up. You can hear the slow, rhythmic grinding of a cow chewing its cud. You can hear the soft, occasional shuffle of hooves on the straw-covered floor. Their breath adds a thick, animal musk to the room, a scent of hay, warm hide, and manure. It is not an unpleasant smell in this world. It is the smell of life and security. Their body heat provides a faint, localized warmth that helps keep the biting frost from the room. You remain still, letting the sounds of the house wash over you. The house is a living thing, built with the labor of hands and the materials of the forest. The great oak crux beams that support the thatched roof groan almost imperceptibly as they contract in the morning cold. The thatch above you feet of tightly bundled straws home to a silent world of its own. You can hear the tiny, delicate scuttle of a mouse moving through the layers of reed, a sound so faint it is almost a vibration. Sometimes, a bit of dust or a stray piece of chaff falls from the rafters, settling invisibly on your blanket. As the light begins to change from a deep, ink-like black to a pale, misty gray, you begin to see the outline of the room. It is a simple, rectangular space. There are no ceilings, only the dark, soot-stained underside of the roof rising into the shadows of the peak. The smoke from the central hearth has nowhere to go but up, and over the years, a thick layer of glistening black carbon has coated every beam and every rafter. This soot acts as a preservative, protecting the wood from rot and insects. But it also means that everything in the house is touched by the ghost of 1,000 fires. The windows are small, mere slits in the thick daub walls. They have no glass, for glass is a luxury of the cathedrals and the great stone keeps. Instead, they are covered with pieces of parchment or linen soaked in tallow and oil. This translucent skin allows a dull, sickly light to enter the room, but it offers no view of the outside world. It only filters the morning into a series of gray smudges. The floor beneath your bed is not made of wood or stone. It is the earth itself, packed down by the footsteps of generations until it is as hard as ceramic. It has been swept and strewn with fresh rushes and herbs, like meadowsweet or lavender, to mask the heavier scents of the dwelling. But the herbs are now dry and crushed, releasing only a faint, peppery ghost of their former fragrance. You move your hand slowly, reaching out from beneath the wool. The air is so cold it feels like stepping into water. You touch the side of the bed frame, which is made of rough-hewn elm. The wood is cold and slightly damp to the touch. You feel the grain of the wood, the knots, and the ridges where the carpenter's adze left its mark. Everything here is textured. Nothing is perfectly smooth. Nothing is machine-made. Every object in your field of vision, the wooden bowl on the bench, the iron tripod by the hearth, the leather flagon bears, the subtle imperfections of the human hand. As you lie there, you think about the insects that share your bed. It is a reality of this life, a slow, itchy reality that you have learned to accept. The straw is a perfect habitat for fleas and lice. Throughout the night, You have felt the tiny, sharp nips on your ankles and waist. You reach down and scratch a familiar itch on your calf, the coarse wool of your hose, providing a brief, rough relief. In this world, the boundary between the human body and the natural world is thin. You are part of the environment, not a master of it. You are a host, a tenant, a participant in the slow, crawling life of the house. The silence of the medieval morning is something that is hard to describe. It is a silence that goes back to the beginning of time. There are no distant motors, no humming wires, no ticking clocks. There is only the sound of the wind moving through the trees outside and the occasional crack of a freezing branch. It is a silence that allows you to hear the beating of your own heart, a slow, steady thud that anchors you to the present moment. You decide it is time to rise. The transition from the warmth of the bed to the cold of the room is a slow, disciplined process. You swing your legs out from under the blanket, and your bare feet touch the floor. The earth is freezing. The cold travels up through the soles of your feet, through your ankles, and into your bones. It is a sharp, grounding sensation. You find your leather shoes, simple turn shoes made of a single piece of cowhide stitched together. They are cold and stiff, the leather having hardened overnight. You slide your feet into them, and they offer little warmth, only a layer of protection against the grit of the floor. You stand up slowly. Your muscles are stiff from the labor of the previous day. Every joint feels as though it needs to be oiled. You stretch, and you can feel the pull of the heavy wool tunic across your shoulders. The fabric is thick and unyielding. You walk toward the center of the room, toward the hearth. The ashes of the fire are a pale, ghostly white in the dim light. You can feel the faint, lingering radiation of heat coming from the stones that ring the fire pit. The house is built this way, this simple. One room designed because heat is precious and difficult to maintain, by keeping the humans, the animals, and the fire in a single space. The community of the household preserves the spark of life through the long, freezing winters. It is an architecture of survival. The low walls and the thick thatch are designed to trap the warmth, even as they trap the smoke and the smells. It is a compromise between breath and warmth, between light and shelter. You find a small wooden stool and sit near the hearth. You take a piece of flint and a striker of high-carbon steel. This is the first rhythm of your day, the rhythmic clink, clink, clink of metal hitting stone. You are looking for a spark, a tiny, fleeting orange dot that will land on a bed of charred linen or dried fungus. It is a slow task. Your hands are cold, and your coordination is dull. You strike again and again. Each strike sends a small vibration up your arm. Finally, a spark catches. You lean in close, your face inches from the tinder. You blow with a slow, steady stream of air. The spark glows brighter. It grows from a pinpoint to a small, pulsing coal. You feed it tiny slivers of dry wood, and finally, a small, tentative flame licks upward. The light from the new fire is orange and warm. It casts long, dancing shadows that race across the daub walls and disappear into the thatch. The smell of fresh wood smoke begins to fill the air, a cleaner, sharper smell than the stale smoke of the night before. You hold your hands out toward the flame. The heat is a sudden, stinging blessing. You watch the skin of your knuckles turn from a pale, cold blue to a flushed, healthy pink. The house is beginning to wake up fully now. The cow in the byre lets out a long, low bellow, a sound that vibrates in the very earth beneath your feet. It is a call for the morning milking, a call to the chores that define the shape of your life. You look around the room. You see the tools of your existence hanging from pegs on the wall, a sickle with a curved serrated blade, a heavy iron pot, a coil of hemp rope. Each object is heavy. Each object represents hours of toil. You think about the walls of the house again. They are not straight. The oak timbers have warped and twisted over the decades, giving the house a slumped, organic appearance. There is a gap near the door, where the daub has cracked and fallen away, revealing the woven hazel wattle beneath. You can see the gray morning light peeking through the crack. A draft of cold air whistles through the opening, dancing across the floor and causing the new fire to flicker. You will have to mend that crack later, with a mixture of clay and straw, a task that requires you to plunge your hands into the cold. Wet earth. Everything in this life is a process. Nothing is instant. To eat, you must grind grain. To drink, you must haul water. To be warm, you must chop wood. This slowness is not a burden. It is simply the rhythm of the world. It is a rhythm that matches the beating of your heart and the turning of the seasons. It is a rhythm that leads to a deep, profound exhaustion, but also a deep, profound rest. You move toward the door. The door is made of heavy oak planks, held together by iron bands that were forged in the heat of a village smithy. The latch is a simple wooden bar. You place your hand on the bar. The wood is smooth, polished by the touch of your father's hands, and his father's before him. You can feel the history of the house in that single piece of wood. Before you open the door, you pause. You listen to the house one last time. The fire is crackling now, a steady, comforting sound. The animals are restless, their hooves thudding softly against the earth. The mouse in the thatch has gone silent, perhaps curled up in a nest of stolen wool. The air in the room is becoming warmer, but the smoke is also becoming thicker, making your eyes sting. You lift the wooden bar. It makes a heavy, clunking sound that echoes in the quiet room. You pull the door inward. The hinges, though greased with animal fat, let out a slow, mournful groan. It is the sound of the house opening itself to the world. As the door swings open, a wall of cold, fresh air hits you. It is a shock to the senses. After the thick, smoky atmosphere of the interior, the outside air feels thin and incredibly pure. It tastes of frost and damp pine. The transition is absolute. You are leaving the dark, textured sanctuary of the house and stepping into the vast, unfolding gray of the morning. The ground outside the threshold is covered in a thick layer of hoarfrost. Every blade of grass, every stone, and every twig is encased in a delicate, crystalline shell of ice. The world looks as though it has been carved from silver. The sky is a pale, luminous violet, with the first hint of gold beginning to bleed through the mist on the horizon. The trees are dark silhouettes against the lightening sky, their branches heavy with the weight of the cold. You take a single step forward. Your shoe crunches into the frozen mud. The sound is loud in the absolute silence of the village. You stand there for a moment, framed by the doorway of your home, looking out at the world you must work in today. The house behind you is a small island of warmth and shadow in a sea of cold light. The mist is rolling through the valley in long, slow ribbons, obscuring the shapes of the other cottages. You can see the faint, dark lines of the smoke rising from their roofs, joining the mist in the still air. Everyone is waking. Everyone is starting their fires. Everyone is preparing to face the slow, heavy demands of the medieval day. You breathe in deeply. The cold air fills your lungs, making you feel alert and grounded. You turn back for a second to look into the dim interior of the house. The fire is a bright, flickering eye in the darkness. The straw of your bed is a pale smudge in the corner. The smell of the hearth follows you out into the morning, a lingering reminder of the home you will return to when the sun goes down. You step fully onto the frozen ground. You reach back and pull the door shut behind you. The latch clicks into place with a final, solid sound. The house is closed. The night is over. You turn your face toward the rising sun, feeling the first faint warmth of the light on your skin. The world is vast, quiet, and very, very slow. You begin to walk, your footsteps rhythmic and steady, moving into the gray light of the village, moving into the work of the day, moving through the timeless, boring reaches of a history that breathes with the earth itself. As you stand in the center of the living space, the fire in the hearth is beginning to take hold, casting a soft, flickering orange light across the room. Your first task of the morning is the washing of the face and the hands. You look toward the corner of the room where a ceramic basin sits upon a heavy wooden trestle. Beside it is a pitcher made of thick glazed stoneware. You have already hauled the water from the well, a task that required you to feel the cold, rough hemp of the rope against your palms, and the heavy, sloshing weight of the bucket against your thigh. The water in the pitcher is very cold. It carries the mineral scent of the deep earth, a clean, stony smell that is refreshing in the smoky air of the house. You lift the pitcher. It is heavy, and the weight requires you to move with a slow, focused strength. You pour the water into the basin. The sound is a gentle, hollow splash that echoes softly in the quiet room. You watch the water swirl in the ceramic bowl, the surface catching the dim light of the morning. You dip your hands into the liquid. The cold is immediate and sharp, a sensation that pulls you fully into the present moment. You cup your hands, lifting the water to your face. You feel the cool moisture against your skin, washing away the salt of sleep and the fine dust of the straw mattress. You do this several times, the water dripping through your fingers and back into the basin with a rhythmic patter. There is no soap as we know it, no bars of perfumed lather. If you use anything at all, it might be a small ball of ash and fat, or perhaps just the abrasive friction of a clean linen cloth. Cleanliness in this world is less about chemicals and more about the physical removal of the day's burden. You take a piece of linen. It is a coarse, unbleached fabric, woven by hand. It feels rough and honest against your damp skin. You rub your face and neck, feeling the tingle of circulation returning to your flesh. This is the first layer of your hygiene, the simple, daily ritual of the basin. In the medieval mind, the health of the body was tied to the balance of the humors, and keeping the pores of the skin clear was seen as a vital way to allow the body to breathe. You move to your hair. You do not wash it with water every day, for drying long hair in a cold, damp climate is a long and difficult process. Instead, you use a comb. The comb is made of polished bone, or perhaps a piece of dark, smooth horn. It has been carved with fine, narrow teeth on one side and broader teeth on the other. You sit by the fire and begin to draw the comb through your hair. The sound is a soft, rhythmic hiss. You start at the ends and work your way up to the scalp. You are removing the dust, the bits of chaff from the bed, and the natural oils that have accumulated. This is a slow, meditative process. You feel the teeth of the comb massaging your scalp, stimulating the skin. You do this for many minutes, the repetition lulling you into a state of quiet focus. This mechanical cleaning is highly effective. By the time you are finished, your hair feels lighter and smoother, despite the lack of water. Now, consider your teeth. You do not have a plastic brush, but you are not without care. You take a small twig, perhaps from a hazel or a willow tree. You use a small sharp knife to fray the end of the twig until the fibers separate into a stiff, brush-like bundle. You dip this into a small dish containing a mixture of ground charcoal and salt, or perhaps dried herbs like sage or mint. You rub the frayed wood against your teeth, feeling the grit of the charcoal and the sharpness of the salt. Then, you take a clean corner of your linen cloth and rub your teeth and gums until they feel smooth. There is a clean, earthy taste in your mouth, the taste of the woods and the sea. This is a functional, daily habit, as natural as breathing. The secret to medieval hygiene, however, lies not in the water or the twigs, but in the linen. In this era, people understood that while wool was the best material for warmth and protection against the elements, it was the linen worn beneath it that kept the body clean. You look at your undershirt, your chemise. It is made of flax that was grown, retted, and spun in these very fields. Linen is a remarkable material. It is absorbent and wicking, drawing the sweat and oils away from your skin and trapping them within its fibers. A medieval person might go weeks without a full immersion bath, but they would change their linen as often as they could. You pull your clean linen tunic over your head. It has been laundered in a nearby stream, beaten against flat stones, and dried in the sun and wind. It smells of the open air and the faint, sweet scent of wood ash used in the lye for washing. As the fresh linen touches your skin, you feel a sense of renewal. The fabric is cool and crisp. By keeping the linen clean, you keep the body beneath it fresh. The undergarment acts as a filter, a barrier between the person and the world. Bathing. The full immersion of the body in a tub of water is a much larger undertaking. It is a ritual reserved for special occasions or the turn of the seasons, primarily because of the immense labor involved. To have a hot bath, you must first spend hours hauling dozens of buckets of water. Then, you must keep a roaring fire going for a long time to heat that water in large iron cauldrons. The water is then poured into a great wooden vat, often lined with a clean cloth to prevent splinters from the oak staves. Imagine the luxury of that moment. The room is filled with a thick, heavy steam that smells of the herbs you have added to the water-dried chamomile, rose petals, or hyssop. You step into the tub, and the heat is a profound, deep-seated relief for your aching muscles. The water envelops you, pulling the tension from your joints and the chill from your bones. You sit there in the dim, steaming light, the water lapping gently against the sides of the tub. In this moment, the harshness of the medieval world fades away. There is only the warmth and the scent of the flowers. But such moments are rare. For the most part, you live in a state of dry cleanliness, a world of linen and combs. We must speak calmly and factually about the disposal of waste. In a world without pipes or sewers, the management of the body's leftovers was a matter of direct, daily involvement. In a cottage like this, there might be a simple pit dug at the far end of the garden, shielded by a small wooden shack or a screen of woven willow, or, more simply, a sturdy ceramic pot kept in a corner for the night's needs. This waste was not seen merely as something dirty, to be hidden away. It was understood as part of the cycle of the land. In the morning, the contents of the pot would be taken out to the cesspit, or the compost heap. Over time, this material, combined with straw and kitchen scraps, would break down into a rich, dark fertilizer. This night soil was vital for the garden, returning the nutrients of the food back into the earth to grow the next year's leeks and cabbages. There is a slow, heavy logic to this system, a realization that nothing is truly lost, and that the body and the earth are in a constant, silent conversation. In larger stone buildings, like a castle or a manor house, the hygiene of waste was more architectural. You might find a garderobe, a small stone chamber built into the thickness of the outer wall. It featured a wooden seat positioned over a vertical shaft that dropped down into a stone-lined pit or directly into the moat. The air in these chambers was often very cold and carried the scent of the damp stone and the stagnant water below. Interestingly, people would often hang their expensive wool cloaks in these garderobes, as the ammonia from the waste served as a natural repellent for moths and insects. It was a practical, if strange, solution to a common problem. Discomfort, in the medieval world, was not something to be avoided at all costs. It was simply the background noise of existence. A modern human might find the itch of a wool tunic, the chill of a damp room, or the lack of hot water to be unbearable. But to you, these things are as normal as the rising of the sun. You have developed a physical and mental toughness that allows you to accept these sensations without judgment. Your skin is thicker, your nerves are more patient. You do not expect every moment to be one of perfect comfort. This acceptance creates a sense of peace. When you are not constantly fighting against your environment, you can find a quiet satisfaction in the small things, the warmth of the fire on your shins, the smoothness of a well-worn spoon, the fresh smell of a clean linen shirt. Your world is smaller, but it is more tactile. You are deeply connected to the materials of your life as the morning light grows stronger, filtering through the oiled parchment of the windows. The hygiene ritual draws to a close. Your hair is combed, your face is washed, and your clean linen is tucked beneath your wool. You feel prepared for the day, not with the chemical freshness of the modern world, but with an ancient, physical readiness. You move back toward the hearth, the center of all life in the house. The fire is burning with a steady, low heat now. The orange glow reflects off the surface of the iron cauldron that hangs from the pot hook. The room is quiet, save for the soft hiss of the sap in the logs and the occasional crackle of a spark. The animals in the byre are quiet now, settled into their own morning rhythms. You look at the ceramic pitcher again. It is empty now, the water used. You will have to walk back to the well later, feeling the weight of the bucket once more. You will have to chop more wood to keep the hearth alive. Every act of cleanliness, every act of survival, requires your direct participation. You are sitting on your small wooden stool, and before you lies the centerpiece of your daily survival, a loaf of bread. This is not the light, airy bread of a modern bakery. This is a loaf of rye and barley, perhaps with a handful of dried peas ground into the flour to stretch the supply. It is called maslin bread. It is dark, dense, and remarkably heavy. When you pick it up, it feels almost like a stone pulled from the riverbed. The crust is thick and unyielding, a protective shell that has been hardened by the intense heat of the communal village oven. You take your small, iron-bladed knife. The handle is made of smooth, dark wood, worn down by years of your own grip. You begin to cut a slice. The sound is a slow, rhythmic rasp of the blade, meeting the resistance of the crust. You have to push with a steady, deliberate pressure. As the loaf opens, you see the interior. It is a deep, earthy brown, textured with small flecks of bran and the occasional glint of a whole grain that escaped the millstone. There is a smell that rises from the bread, a smell of fermented yeast, of damp earth, and of the smoke that infused the oven stones. It is a somber, honest scent. As you chew a piece of this bread, you notice the texture. It is not soft. It requires effort. Your jaw moves in a slow, steady rhythm. Sometimes, you feel a tiny, sharp crunch, a fragment of the millstone that was ground into the flour as the heavy stones turned against one another. This is the grit of the medieval world. It is a reminder that your food comes directly from the earth, from the labor of the miller and the strength of the wind or the water. You chew slowly, letting the saliva soften the grain, extracting every possible calorie. There is no butter here. There is no jam. There is only the bread, the salt, and the slow passage of time. Beside the bread, sitting in the embers of the fire, is the iron cauldron. It is a heavy, soot-stained vessel that has hung over this fire for as long as you can remember. Inside, the pottage is simmering. Pottage is the heartbeat of the medieval kitchen. It is a thick, gray-green stew that is never truly finished. As it is eaten, more water and more ingredients are added, so that the flavors of yesterday and the day before linger in the pot. You take your wooden spoon, a simple utensil carved from a piece of pale beechwood, and you stir the mixture. The movement is slow and heavy. You feel the resistance of the thick liquid. In the pottage, there are dried peas that have been boiled until they have softened into a mush. There are leeks from the small garden patch behind the house, their white and green ribbons swirling in the steam. Perhaps there are a few small pieces of turnip, or a handful of wild herbs gathered from the edge of the forest. The pottage is bland. It is a landscape of soft textures and earthy flavors. It tastes of the water from the well and the salt that was traded for at the market. If you are fortunate, there might be a small piece of salted pork or bacon rind, kept for weeks in the larder, added to the pot to give it a hint of fat and saltiness. You do not eat the meat today. You let it simmer, letting its essence flavor the peas, saving the morsel itself for a feast day or a time of deeper cold. You pour a bowl of this pottage. The ceramic bowl is warm against your palms, a comforting heat that seeps into your skin. You lift the spoon to your mouth. The steam rises in a slow, lazy column, carrying the scent of boiled greens and wood smoke. You blow on the liquid, a steady, cooling breath. Then, you sip. The pottage is thick and filling. It coats your tongue and warms your throat. This is the warmth that will carry you through the hours of labor in the fields. It is not a meal of pleasure. It is a meal of endurance. As you eat, you reflect on the presence of hunger. In this world, hunger is a neighbor who never leaves. It is a quiet, persistent companion. Even after you finish your bowl of pottage, there is a space in your stomach that feels empty. You never truly feel full in the way a modern person might. You live in a state of perpetual enough. You eat enough to work, enough to live, but never enough to forget the scarcity of the world. This scarcity is dictated by the seasons. We are in the late winter now, the time of the hungry gap. The stores of grain in the bins are running low. The dried beans hanging from the rafters have dwindled to a few handfuls. The salted meat is almost gone. Every scoop of flour and every ladle of pottage is measured with a slow, careful eye. You know that the new harvest is months away, hidden deep within the frozen earth. You must stretch the old life to meet the new. This realization brings a quiet, meditative quality to your eating. You do not waste a single crumb. You wipe the bowl clean with a piece of bread, ensuring that every drop of nourishment is claimed out to drink. You have a small wooden tankard of small beer, or ale. This is not the strong, intoxicating brew of a modern tavern. It is a weak, cloudy liquid, fermented just enough to ensure it is safer to drink than the standing water of the village. It is made from the second or third rinsing of the malted grain. It is thick with yeast and protein, a liquid bread that provides as much nutrition as it does hydration. You lift the tankard. It is heavy, and the wood is slightly damp. You take a long, slow swallow. The ale is lukewarm, carrying a faint, sweet temps of fermented grain and a bitter hint of wild herbs, like bog myrtle or yarrow, used instead of hops. It settles in your stomach with a gentle weight. It numbs the slight ache in your joints and softens the edges of the morning cold. You drink rhythmically, the liquid marking the pace of your thoughts. The process of preparing this food is a slow, daily labor. There are no shortcuts. To have the ale, the grain must be malted, dried, and steeped. To have the bread, the grain must be taken to the Lord's mill, ground under the heavy stones, and then kneaded by hand until your arms ache. To have the pottage, the fire must be tended, the water hauled, and the vegetables scrubbed of their garden soil. Your entire life is woven into the preparation of these simple things. The food is a physical manifestation of your time and your effort. When you eat, you are consuming your own work. The room is very quiet as you finish your meal. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the occasional scraping of your spoon against the wood of the bowl. The light is growing stronger outside, but here in the cottage, the shadows remain thick. You sit for a moment, letting the warmth of the food settle. You feel the slow pulse of your blood in your fingertips. The hunger has retreated to a dull hum, a background noise that you can manage. You look at the remains of the loaf of bread. You wrap it carefully in a piece of clean linen. This will be your midday meal, taken in the lee of a stone wall, or under the bare branches of a hedge. It is a precious cargo. You place it in a small leather scrip, the strap of which you will sling over your shoulder. In the medieval world, the kitchen is not a place of stainless steel and bright lights. It is a place of iron, wood, and ash. The tools are few, and they are built to last for generations. The iron tripod that holds the pot, the heavy cleaver, the wooden dough trough, these are the constants of your life. They do not change. They do not break. They are as reliable and as slow as the turning of the stars. You think about the cycle of the year. In the summer, there will be more. There will be fresh greens, perhaps some wild berries, and the occasional egg from the few scrawny hens that peck at the dirt outside. In the autumn, there will be the bounty of the harvest, the smell of fresh straw, and the richness of the new grain. But now, in the heart of winter, the world is stripped down to its essentials. It is a time of brown and gray. It is a time of rye and peas, and there is a certain peace in this simplicity. There are no choices to make, no decisions to weigh. You eat what the earth has provided, and you do so with a quiet, somber gratitude. The fire is dying down now, the orange flames giving way to the steady, pulsing heat of the coals. You take a heavy iron lid and place it over the pottage pot, preserving the warmth for the evening when you return. The movement is slow and deliberate. You feel the weight of the iron. You feel the heat of the steam against your wrist. The silence of the house feels different now. It is no longer the silence of sleep, but the silence of preparation. The meal has given you the energy you need to step back out into the cold. You feel the weight of your wool tunic, the scratchy texture of your hose, and the solid ground beneath your feet. The transition from the hearth to the field is beginning. You stand up, your joints moving with a slow, measured stiffness. You stretch your arms, feeling the pull of the fabric across your back. You pick up your scrip, feeling the weight of the bread against your hip. You take one last look at the room, the flickering shadows, the soot-stained beams, the empty bowl on the table. This is the center of your world. This is where the fire lives. You move toward the door. The air near the threshold is significantly colder, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the hearth. You can see the frost patterns on the wood of the door, delicate and white. You place your hand on the latch. The iron is freezing, a sudden jolt to your senses. You lift the bar, hearing the familiar, heavy clunk of wood against wood. As you open the door, the gray light of the winter morning pours in. It is a soft, diffused light that reveals the world in shades of slate and bone. The mist is still hanging low over the fields, obscuring the distant woods. The air is perfectly still, holding the scent of wood smoke and frozen earth. In our modern world, we measure work in hours, in minutes, and in the bright, digital glow of a clock. Here, in the 13th century, time is not a sequence of numbers. Time is the slow, arc-like movement of the sun across a vast, gray sky. There are no weekends here. There is no concept of a break in the way we understand it. There is only the light, and when the light is present, there is work. As you look out over the expanse of the village's communal land, divided into long, narrow strips, you see the shape of your entire existence. This is a landscape of repetition. You begin to move. Your first task is to break the heavy clods of earth that the plow has turned up. You lift the hoe. The movement starts in your shoulders, travels down your spine, and settles in your hips. The tool is heavy. It is not designed for speed. It is designed for the weight of the task. You bring it down into the damp soil. The sound is a muffled, rhythmic thud. You pull the blade toward you, feeling the resistance of the clay and the roots of the summer's weeds. This is a slow, methodical process. You do not think about the end of the row. You only think about the next strike. As you work, you are aware of your position in the feudal world. This is not your land. You are working today. This is the Lord's land. In the medieval system, your life is defined by a series of obligations, a web of duties that bind you to the soil and to the man who holds the title to it. You owe him week work, 3 days of every week spent tilling his soil, tending his hedges, and harvesting his grain. It is a natural, unquestioned part of your life. It is the price you pay for the small strip of land that feeds your family, and for the protection of the stone manor house that sits on the hill, overlooking the valley. There is no resentment in this labor. There is only the reality of it. You work the Lord's land first, ensuring his barns are full, before you can turn your attention to your own survival. This is the boon work, the extra labor demanded during the busiest times of the year. It is a slow, grinding pressure that never truly lifts. You are part of the corvée, the system of forced labor that keeps the wheels of the feudal world turning. As you strike the earth again and again, you feel the weight of this system in the very bones of your arms. The silence of the field is immense. In the modern world, we are surrounded by the hum of machinery, but here, the only sounds are natural and repetitive. You hear the heavy, wet breathing of the oxen in the next strip over. They are pulling a heavy moldboard plow, a massive construction of oak and iron that carves a deep, turning furrow into the earth. The sound of the plow is a slow, tearing groan, the wood creaking against the resistance of the soil. You hear the voice of the plowman, a low, melodic drone as he whistles to the beasts, keeping them in a steady, slow-moving line. The oxen move with a gravitational slowness. Their hooves thud into the mud with a sound like a heartbeat. The smell of their warm hides and their grassy breath mixes with the scent of the turned earth, a rich, cold, mineral smell that fills your lungs. You are wearing your heavy wool tunic, and as the morning progresses, the internal heat of your body begins to meet the external chill of the air. A fine layer of sweat forms on your skin, trapped beneath the scratchy linen of your undershirt. It is a damp, uncomfortable warmth. You can feel the moisture clinging to your back, but you do not stop. You cannot stop. To stop is to lose the light, and the light is the only currency you have. You track the sun. It is a pale, silver disk behind the clouds, moving with an agonizing slowness. In your mind, you divide the sky into quarters. When the sun is a hand's breadth above the horizon, the morning is young. When it reaches the peak of its low, winter arc, it will be midday. You watch the shadows of the trees at the edge of the woods. They are long and thin now, stretching toward you like dark fingers. As the hours pass, those shadows will slowly shrink, pulling back toward the trunks of the oaks and the elms. This is your only clock. It is a clock that requires patience, a clock that cannot be rushed. Every movement you make is a study in conservation. You have learned over many years that to move too quickly is to exhaust yourself before the sun has even reached its zenith. You move with a rhythmic, swinging gait. You use the weight of the HOH to do the work, letting the iron fall and the wood follow. Your body has become a machine of wood and bone, calibrated for endurance. You think about the structure of the fields, the three-field system that dictates the rhythm of the village. One field is planted with winter wheat or rye. One is planted with spring oats or barley. And the third lies fallow, resting and gathering strength from the rain and the sun. You are working in the spring field today. The knowledge of this rotation is deep within you, a silent understanding of the earth's needs. You know that the land, like your body, needs to breathe and rest. But for you, the rest is only a dream of the night. In the daylight, there is only the repetition. As midday approaches, the air does not truly warm, but the mist finally dissolves, revealing the distant, rolling hills of the manor. Your back is a dull, constant ache. It is not a sharp pain, but a heavy, throbbing sensation that seems to have its own pulse. You feel it in the small of your back, radiating upward into your shoulder blades. You stretch, a slow, careful movement, hearing the soft pop of your vertebrae. The relief is fleeting. As soon as you bend again, the ache returns. Settling back into its familiar place, you reach for your script, the leather bag you carried from the house. Inside is the piece of dark bread and the small flask of weak ale. You sit on the edge of the furrow, your feet sinking slightly into the soft, turned earth. The ground is cold, and the dampness quickly seeps through your hose. But the sensation of sitting is a profound luxury. You eat the bread slowly. It is dry and hard, and you have to chew it thoroughly, letting the grain break down. The ale is cool and tart, washing the dust of the field from your throat. This is not a lunch break in the modern sense. There is no conversation, no distraction. You sit in the silence of the landscape, watching the crows circle in the gray sky. They are waiting for you to move so they can descend upon the furrows to find the worms and the grubs you have uncovered. You watch them with a neutral, tired eye. They, too, are part of the cycle. They, too, are working for their survival. The rest is short. You can feel the sun beginning its slow descent even before you have finished your bread. The light is precious. You stand up. Your muscles protest with a sudden, sharp stiffness. Your hands, when you grip the hoe again, feel thick and unresponsive. You have to flex your fingers several times to regain your grip. The wood of the handle feels even heavier than it did in the morning. The afternoon labor is different from the morning labor. In the morning, there is a sense of purpose, a fresh energy that carries you through the first few hours. In the afternoon, the work becomes a test of the will. Each strike of the HO requires a conscious effort. You find yourself counting your breaths, matching them to the swing of the tool. In, out, strike, in, out, strike. The world narrows down to the small patch of earth directly in front of your feet. Notice the details of the soil with a microscopic focus. You see the small, pale worms curling in the damp clay. You see the glint of a small quartz pebble. You see the different shades of brown and gray in the earth. This is the only world that exists for you now. The manor house, the village, the distant forest, they are all part of a larger, fading dream. The only reality is the dirt and the iron. Physical exhaustion is a strange, heavy state. It begins to feel as though your limbs are no longer made of flesh, but of something much denser like lead or wet oak. Your movements become slower, more deliberate. You are no longer fighting the earth. You are moving with it, a slow, dragging dance of survival. Your mind begins to drift, lulled by the repetition. You think about nothing. You simply exist within the rhythm of the work. In the feudal world, there is a profound lack of variety. You will do this today. You will do this tomorrow. You will do it the day after that. There is no weekend to look forward to, no 2-day respite from the toil. The only breaks are the holy days, the saints' days, scattered through the calendar. On those days, the work stops, and the village gathers in the small stone church. But even those days are colored by the knowledge of the work that remains. The weeds do not stop growing on a saint's day. The rain does not stop falling. The earth is a relentless master. As the sun continues its slow slide toward the horizon, the air begins to grow colder again. The dampness that had retreated into the soil starts to rise back into the air. You can feel it in your joints, a cold, biting sensation that makes every movement feel brittle. Your wool tunic is no longer warm. It is merely a heavy, damp weight. Your feet are cold and numb inside your leather turn shoes. The exhaustion is no longer just in your muscles. It is in your very bones. It is a deep-seated weariness that feels as though it has been there for centuries. You are a part of a long line of people who have stood in this same field, striking the same earth with the same iron tools. You are a link in a chain of labor that stretches back into the mists of time. This thought is not a burden. It is a grounding, stabilizing reality. You are not alone in your exhaustion. You are part of a vast, silent community of the tired. You are lying once again on your pallias, but the morning light has a different quality today. It feels sharper, colder against your eyelids. When you try to sit up, the movement is not just slow, it is burdensome. Your head feels heavy, as if it were filled with the same gray silt that settles at the bottom of the river. Your joints, already stiff from years of labor, now hum with a persistent, low-level heat. You have the ague, a word that encompasses many things, a fever, a chill, a general slowing of the spirit. You do not reach for a thermometer. You do not think of bacteria or viruses. To you, this sickness is a matter of balance. You have been taught, as everyone has, the theory of the 4 humors. Your body is a vessel for 4 sacred fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When you are healthy, these fluids flow, like the streams in the valley, in perfect, quiet harmony. But today, you feel out of balance. Perhaps the winter dampness has made you too phlegmatic, too cold, and too moist. Perhaps the blood has become too hot. You lie back down, and the straw beneath you crunches with a dry, hollow sound. The room is quiet. The others have gone to the fields, their footsteps fading into the morning mist. You are alone with the house. The smell of the hearth is still there, the dry, acrid scent of oak ash butt. Today it seems more pungent, more intrusive. You look up at the soot-stained rafters, following the slow, twisting patterns of the wood grain. The darkness of the thatch above you feels like a heavy blanket, pressing down on your fevered brow. In this world, sickness is accepted as fate. It is not an injustice. It is a test of the soul, or a simple manifestation of the humors. There is a profound, quiet stoicism in this acceptance. You do not fight the fever with the frantic energy of the modern mind. You simply inhabit it. You wait. You listen to the slow, rhythmic ticking of the house, the creak of a timber, the rustle of a mouse, the distant lowing of a cow. The door creaks open, a slow, mournful sound. It is the village-wise woman, or perhaps a monastic healer from the nearby priory. They do not carry a black bag of instruments. They carry the forest and the garden. As they move toward you, you smell them before you see them. They smell of dried earth, of vinegar, and of a dozen different herbs that have been hung from the rafters of their own dwelling to dry in the smoke. The healer moves with a practiced, unhurried grace. They place a hand on your forehead. The skin is rough and cool, a sudden grounding contrast to your own heat. They do not offer a diagnosis in the way we understand it. They speak of the seasons, of the moon, and of the temperament of your soul. They look at your eyes, searching for the clarity of the humors. Their voice is low and steady, a monotonous hum that matches the rhythm of the fire. They begin to prepare a remedy. This is a slow, tactile process. They take a small stone mortar and pestle from their pouch. They add dried leaves of sage and hyssop. You hear the rhythmic clinkling grind of the stone against stone. The sound is hypnotic. With every turn of the pestle, a new scent is released into the room, the sharp, peppery scent of the sage, the clean, camphor-like smell of the hyssop. These are the medicines of the medieval world. They are not designed to kill an infection. They are designed to shift the balance of the body, to coax the humors back into their proper channels. The healer takes a small ceramic bowl and fills it with warm water from the cauldron. They mix in the ground herbs and a spoonful of dark, cloudy honey. The honey smells of wildflowers and old wax. They hold the bowl to your lips. The liquid is warm and slightly bitter, the honey coating your throat with a heavy, soothing sweetness. You drink slowly, in small, rhythmic sips. Each swallow feels like a slow wave of warmth spreading through your chest. There is a deep comfort in this ritual. It is a comfort of the senses. Even if the herbs cannot truly cure the underlying malaise, the care itself, the grinding of the stone, the scent of the mint, the warmth of the honey provides a sanctuary for the mind. You feel less like a victim of a disease and more like a participant in a long, ancient tradition of healing. Later in the day, the healer might prepare a poultice. They take a piece of coarse linen, the same linen you wear against your skin, every day, and they soak it in a mixture of warm vinegar and crushed rose petals. They place the cloth over your eyes or across your chest. The vinegar is sharp and cooling, drawing the heat from your skin. The scent of the roses is faint and ghostly, a memory of the summer garden brought into the dark, smoky room. You lie there, the damp weight of the linen pressing you further into the straw. The world outside, the cottage, the fields, the Lord, the taxes seems far away, lost in a haze of vinegar and roses. If the illness is deeper, the healer might speak of bloodletting. To the medieval mind, this is the most logical of acts. If the body is too hot, if the blood is too plentiful, then some of that heat must be released. They might use a small, sharp instrument called a fleam, or perhaps they bring a small jar of leeches gathered from the marsh. As you listen to the explanation, there is no fear. There is only a quiet, factual understanding of the procedure. The healer finds a vein in your arm, their fingers pressing softly into the flesh. They speak of the stars and the alignment of the planets, ensuring that the time is right for the humors to be shifted. The process is slow. It is quiet. You watch a few dark drops of blood fall into a ceramic bowl. To you, this is not a loss. It is a release. You feel a strange, psychological lightness, as if the pressure within your body is slowly ebbing away. The healer then binds the small wound with a clean strip of linen, their movements rhythmic and sure. As the afternoon light fades into a dull leaden gray, the priest might visit. In the Middle Ages, the health of the body and the health of the soul are inextricably linked. The priest does not bring herbs, he brings words. He speaks in Latin, a language you do not fully understand, but the sound of it is deeply comforting. It is a slow melodic chant, the vowels long and resonant in the small room. The priest sprinkles a few drops of holy water on the floor and on your bed. The water smells of the stone font and the cool air of the church. He speaks of the saints, perhaps Saint Roch, the protector against plagues, or Saint Jude, the patron of lost causes. You find yourself focusing on the rhythm of his prayers, the repetition of the Amen acting as a soft anchor for your drifting thoughts. You do not necessarily expect a miracle. You simply find peace in the idea that your suffering is seen, that it has a place in the divine order of the world. There is a profound beauty in this lack of cure, because there are no miracle drugs. The focus remains entirely on the present moment. The focus is on the warmth of the fire, the taste of the herb-infused water, and the sound of a kind voice. You are not waiting for a recovery that might not come. You are simply existing within the care that is available. This creates a state of deep, heavy presence. The hours pass in a blur of semi-sleep. You drift in and out of consciousness, the boundaries of your body feeling soft and uncertain. The room changes as the sun moves. A single beam of light might find a gap in the shutters, illuminating a million dancing specks of dust that swirl in the air like a slow-motion galaxy. You watch them for a long time, your eyes tracing their aimless rhythmic paths. The dust is a part of the house, a part of the straw, and a part of you. You think about the physic garden at the nearby monastery. You imagine the monks in their dark wool robes, moving slowly between the raised beds of herbs. You can see the rows of lavender, the tall stalks of foxglove, the creeping thyme. You can hear the hum of the bees as they move from flower to flower, oblivious to the human world. This garden is a living pharmacy, a place where the earth is, carefully tended to provide the scents and the textures of healing. The knowledge of these plants has been passed down for 1,000 years, a slow, steady accumulation of wisdom that rests now in the bowl of pottage or the linen poultice. In this world, discomfort is not a problem to be solved. It is a condition to be managed. The itch of the wool, the dampness of the air, the dull ache of the fever, these are the constants. By accepting them, you strip them of their power to agitate you. You become like a stone in the stream, letting the water of the illness flow over you without being moved by it. This is the ultimate comfort of the medieval world, the comfort of surrender. As the evening draws in, the others return from the fields. You hear their heavy rhythmic footsteps on the hard earth outside. You hear the creak of the door and the soft, tired greetings. The smell of the outdoors, the cold air, the damp wool, the scent of the soil comes into the room with them. It is a refreshing, honest smell. They move quietly, respecting the stillness of the sick room. One of them sits by the fire and begins to prepare the evening meal. The sound of the knife against the wooden board thud, 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 is a familiar, grounding rhythm. They are cutting leeks and onions for the pottage. The scent of the onions rises into the air, sharp and pungent, cutting through the smell of the vinegar and the herbs. It is the smell of the living world, a reminder of the cycles of work and nourishment that continue even when you are still. As you listen to my voice, I want you to imagine the sound of a bell. It is not the sharp, hurried chime of a modern alarm. It is a deep, resonant bronze vibration that begins in the steeple of the parish church and travels outward, across the thatched roofs, over the garden plots, and deep into the damp, silent woods. This is the Angelus bell, or perhaps the prime, marking the start of the day. In the medieval world, the church bell is the only clock. It is the heartbeat of the community. It doesn't just tell you the time. It tells you who you are and where you stand in the eyes of the Creator. You are standing in the muddy track that serves as the village street. The air is cold and the mist is thick, but the sound of the bell provides a structure, a sense of safety. To a modern human, the silence of the past would be terrifying, but for you, the bell fills that silence. It reminds you that you are part of a vast, cosmic order. Every strike of the bronze is a reminder that your labor, your hunger, and your weariness are not random. They are part of a divine plan that spans from the beginning of time to the very end. This belief is the ultimate survival tool. It is the invisible bracing that keeps the house of your mind from collapsing under the weight of the winter. Think about the physical presence of the parish church. In a village of timber, mud, and straw, the church is the only building made of stone. It is a massive, silent sentinel of flint or limestone. As you walk toward it, you feel the transition in the air. The smell of the street, the dung, the damp earth, the wood smoke gives way to the smell of the sacred. It is a smell of cold stone, of old incense, and of the sweet, heavy scent of beeswax candles. You enter through the heavy oak door, and the world changes. The light here is different. It is filtered through small panes of thick, wavy glass, or colored by the rich pigments of wall paintings. In the modern world, we are surrounded by images, but for you, these walls are the only book you will ever read. You look up at the doom painting above the chancel arch. It is a vast, vivid landscape of the afterlife. On one side, the saved rise in white robes toward a golden city. On the other, the lost are led away into the dark. This painting is not a horror story to you. It is a map. It is a factual representation of the stakes of your life. A modern person might find the constant presence of hell to be a source of anxiety, but for you, it is a source of clarity. It gives every action a profound meaning. When you share your bread with a neighbor, or when you refrain from theft, even when your belly is empty, you are not just following a law. You are building your place in that golden city. The fear of sin is not a paralyzing dread. It is a weight that balances the scales. It makes the world make sense. As you stand on the cold stone floor, you feel the silence of the church. It is a different silence than the silence of the fields. It is a full silence, thick with the prayers of the generations who stood exactly where you are standing now. You reach into the pocket of your wool tunic and feel your paternoster beads. They are simple wooden spheres strung on a piece of rough hemp. You move them through your fingers, one by one. The wood is smooth, polished by the oil of your skin. With each bead, you say a prayer. Paternoster, qui es in seal. You don't necessarily think about the meaning of every Latin word. The words are a rhythm. They are a mantra that calms the racing of your mind. They are a way of breathing. As you move the beads, the worries of the datha, leaking thatch, the failing cow, the cold in your joints begin to recede. They are small things when compared to the vastness of the liturgy. This repetitive rhythmic prayer is a form of meditation that a modern human, with their fragmented attention, has forgotten how to use. It is a shield against the chaos of the world. We must consider the role of the priest. He is not a distant figure. He is your neighbor. He tills his own strips of land in the common field. He smells of the same wood smoke and the same earth. But when he puts on his vestments of silk and linen, he becomes a bridge between your world and the next. When he speaks the words of the Mass, the air in the church becomes heavy with a physical presence. You watch the smoke from the censer rise in slow, blue coils toward the rafters. The light from the candles flickers against the gold of the chalice dot. In this moment, the boundary between heaven and earth disappears. You are no longer just a peasant in a cold village. You are a witness to the eternal. This experience, repeated week after week, century after century, creates a sense of profound belonging. You are never truly alone. You are surrounded by the saints, whose statues stand in the niches, painted in bright, comforting colors. You speak to them as you would speak to a friend. Saint Margaret, protect my daughter, you whisper. Saint Nicholas, watch over the grain. This belief shapes how you handle disease and misfortune. When the pestilence comes, or when the crops fail, you do not look for a scientific explanation that you cannot control. You look for a moral one. You see the illness as a visitation. It is a call to penance, a sign that the balance of the world has been disturbed. While this might seem primitive to a modern mind, it provides a powerful form of agency. If the sickness is caused by sin, then it can be addressed through prayer, through pilgrimage, and through the slow rhythmic act of contrition. It gives you something to do when there is nothing that can be done. It prevents the despair that comes from feeling like a victim of blind, indifferent forces as the sun begins its slow descent. The church bells ring again for vespers. The sound travels through the village, a signal to put down the tools and turn the mind back toward the dark. You walk back to your cottage, and the shadows are long and heavy. In the medieval world, the night is a place of mystery. Without electricity, the darkness is absolute. You believe that the woods are home to spirits, to fair folk, and to the shadows of the restless dead. But you are not afraid in the way a modern person would be. Your faith is a lantern that you carry within you. You cross yourself as you pass the old oak tree at the edge of the woods. You mutter a brief prayer as you bolt the door of your hut. These small, repetitive actions are a form of spiritual hygiene. They are how you keep the darkness at bay. You do not try to conquer the night. You simply navigate it with the tools you have been given. Inside the cottage, the fire has burned down to a deep, pulsing red. The room is hazy with smoke, and the smell of the animals in the byre is thick. You sit on your stool and watch the embers. To you, the fire is not just a source of heat. It is a reflection of the purgatory you have seen in the church paintings, a place of cleansing and transition. You feel a sense of quiet, somber peace. The world is hard, yes. The body is tired, yes. But the soul is secure. You think about the canonical hours, the cycle of prayer, that the monks in the nearby abbey follow throughout the night. Matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, conclin. Even as you sleep, someone, somewhere, is awake and praying. Someone is keeping the watch. Someone is maintaining the spiritual structure of the world while you rest. This realization is like a warm blanket. It allows you to let go of the day completely. You do not have to carry the world on your shoulders. The church carries it for you. The silence of the evening is profound. In the modern world, our minds are never truly still. They are filled with the echoes of 1,000 voices from across the globe. But here, your mind is as quiet as the frost on the thatch. Your thoughts move slowly, like the smoke rising toward the roof. You think about the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues. They are a simple, sturdy framework for your life. You reflect on your day. Did you give in to anxiety, the slow, heavy sloth of the spirit? Did you feel the prick of envy when you saw the neighbor's new ox? You do not judge yourself with the harsh, analytical eye of a modern psychologist. You judge yourself with the patient, rhythmic logic of a confessor. You acknowledge the fault. You promise a small act of penance, perhaps an extra prayer at the morning bell, and then you let it go. The burden is lifted. The slate is wiped clean. This ability to find immediate, structured forgiveness is perhaps the greatest survival advantage of the medieval mind. It prevents the accumulation of the mental silt that we call stress. As you prepare for bed, the darkness in the room is total. You can hear the wind whistling through the wattle and daub, a lonely, haunting sound, but the sound doesn't reach your heart. You say your final prayers for the day of the Compline, feeling the familiar words settle in your throat like a warm liquid. Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. The bed of straw feels firm and grounding. As you pull up the heavy wool covers, you feel the physical and spiritual weight of the house settling around you. You are part of the communion of saints. You are part of the village, part of the land, and part of the heavens. The isolation of the modern individual is unknown to you. You are woven into a tapestry of belief that is as strong as the oak beams above your head. The fire pops one last time. A single bright spark that vanishes into the soot. The embers fade from orange to a dull, dusty gray. The cold of the night begins to creep across the dirt floor, but you are tucked away in your sanctuary of faith and wool. Your breathing becomes slow and rhythmic, matching the deep, silent heartbeat of the medieval world. Imagine that the sun has just slipped below the horizon. In our time, this is when the world truly wakes up. The streetlights flicker to life, the neon signs begin to glow, and our homes remain as bright as midday. But in the medieval world, the setting of the sun is a closing door. There are no streetlights here. There is no ambient glow from a neighboring city reflecting off the clouds. When the sun goes down, the world disappears. You are standing in the doorway of your small, timber-framed cottage, and you are watching the light fade from blue to a deep, bruising purple, and then, finally, to an absolute, ink-like black. The transition is slow, yet relentless. As the light recedes, the world feels as though it is shrinking. The distant hills vanish first, then the trees at the edge of the field, and then the path just outside your door. Eventually, there is only the darkness. For a modern human, this total lack of light is disorienting. Your eyes strain, searching for a reference point, a single glint of light, but there is none. The darkness is so pure that it feels heavy against your skin. It is a sensory deprivation that we rarely experience today. In this world, you do not move through the night. You wait for it to pass. To have light in this world is a slow, difficult, and expensive process. You step back inside and turn toward the hearth. In your hand, you hold a rush. This is the simplest form of artificial light. It is a dried meadow rush that has been peeled to reveal the pith, and then dipped repeatedly into melted animal fat. The smell is heavy and greasy, a scent of rendered sheep fat and old smoke. It is not the pleasant, floral scent of a modern candle. It is a functional, animal smell. You place the rushlight into a small iron holder. You take a piece of flint and a striker of steel. The task of creating fire is rhythmic and requires a steady hand. You strike the steel against the flint. Clink, clink, clink. Each strike sends a shower of tiny, fleeting orange sparks into the dark. Finally, one spark catches a small piece of charred linen tinder. You blow on it, a slow, steady breath, until the spark grows into a small, pulsing coal. You touch the rushlight to the coal, and a tiny, flickering flame appears. The light produced by a rushlight is meek. It does not fill the room. It only pushes the darkness back a few feet. It casts long, wavering shadows that dance across the wattle and daub walls. The flame gutters and pops, casting a dim amber glow that barely illuminates your hands. If you are wealthy, you might have a tallow candle, but even that is a luxury. Most of your night will be spent in this hazy, flickering half-light. The corners of the room remain shrouded in shadow. The rafters above are lost in a sea of black soot and darkness. This is the only light you have to perform your final chores of the day. You move slowly through the room, your footsteps muffled by the hard-packed earth and the layer of straw. The silence of the medieval night is something that a modern person would find almost deafening. In our world, there is always a background, hummed, the vibration of electricity, the sound of a distant fan, the static of the air. Here, the silence is total. It is a thick, heavy silence that makes every small sound feel amplified. You hear the rhythmic, heavy breathing of the livestock in the lean-to on the other side of the wall. The cow sighs, a long, low sound that vibrates through the timber. You hear the rustle of the straw as a sheep shifts its weight. These are the sounds of the medieval night, organic, slow, and repetitive. They are the sounds of a world that is breathing in unison. Occasionally, you hear the sharp, brittle snap of a twig in the woods outside, or the distant, mournful hoot of an hour. Without the noise of machinery, these natural sounds become the soundtrack of your existence. They are not interruptions. They are the texture of the silence. You go to the windows. They are not made of glass. They are small openings covered with wooden shutters, or perhaps a piece of oiled linen. You close the shutters and slide the wooden bar into place. Thud. The sound is solid and final. You are sealing yourself inside. In the medieval mind, the night is not just dark. It is a time of mystery and potential danger. By bolting the door and closing the shutters, you are creating a small sanctuary of light and warmth in a vast, cold void. Now, you must tend to the hearth. This is the most important ritual of the evening. You do not let the fire go out, but you must cover it. This is the origin of the word curfew, from the French couvre-feu, meaning cover fire. You use a large ceramic or iron cover, or perhaps you simply bank the embers under a thick layer of ash. This keeps the coals glowing and alive until the morning, while preventing any stray sparks from catching the straw on the floor. You move the ashes with a slow, sweeping motion. The gray dust rises in a soft cloud, settling back onto the hearth. The orange glow of the embers is dimmed, leaving the room in a state of soft, pulsing twilight. The cold begins to seep in, without a roaring fire. The dampness of the earth and the chill of the night air find their way through the cracks in the walls. You prepare for sleep. You do not have multiple rooms. The family sleeps together for warmth. You move toward the bed, which is a simple wooden frame filled with a mattress of straw and chaff. You pull back the heavy wool blankets. They are thick and scratchy, smelling of sheep and wood. They have a weight to them that is grounding. As you lie down, the straw beneath you crunches and groans, settling under your weight. It is not the soft, yielding foam of a modern mattress. It is firm and textured. You feel the individual stalks of straw through the linen casing. It is a rustic, honest kind of comfort. You pull the blankets up to your chin. Your breath forms a faint, ghostly mist in the cold air. You lie there, perfectly still, listening to the house. The thatch above you is home to many things. You hear the tiny, delicate scuttle of a mouse moving through the dried reeds. You hear the soft, muffled coo of a bird nested near the eaves. The house itself seems to be settling, the oak timbers contracting in the cold with a slow rhythmic groan. These sounds are familiar. They are the language of the home. They tell you that the world is still there, even if you cannot see it. In the medieval world, sleep often came in two shifts. You would fall into a deep, heavy sleep soon after the sun went down, and then you might wake for an hour or two in the dead of night. This was a time for quiet reflection, for prayer, or for hushed conversation in the dark. In this state of wakefulness, the world feels even more still. You lie there in the absolute blackness, your mind slow and unhurried. There is no urge to check a clock, no anxiety about the coming day. You are simply existing in the present moment, suspended in the velvet dark. Eventually, the second sleep comes. It is a lighter, more rhythmic rest. You are drifting now. The boundaries of the room have disappeared. The scratchiness of the wool, the scent of the tallow, the coldness of the air, they all begin to merge into a single, monotonous hum. Your breathing slows, matching the steady, slow pulse of the embers under the ash. Your heartbeat is the only clock that matters. The darkness is no longer a void. It is a blanket. It is a protective space where the demands of the medieval data plowing, the grinding, the hauling cannot reach you. You are safe in the silence. You are held by the timber and the thatch. The modern world, with its frantic lights and constant noise, is 1,000 years away. It is an impossible dream. Here, there is only the slow, heavy rhythm of the earth. You feel your limbs becoming heavy. Your thoughts are like smoke, rising slowly and drifting away into the rafters. The sound of the wind outside is a soft, rhythmic hiss as it brushes against the thatch. It is a lullaby of the elements. The cold air against your face makes the warmth beneath the blankets feel even deeper, even more profound. You are sinking. You are letting go of the edges of the day. The rushlight has long since burned out. The room is in total darkness now, a darkness so deep that it feels like peace. You are no longer a modern human struggling to survive. You are part of the history of this place. You are a single breath in a long, slow line of breaths that have filled this room for centuries. The night is your friend. The silence is your sanctuary. As you drift further away, the images of the day fade into a soft, monochromatic blur. The gray of the fields, the brown of the bread, the orange of the fire, they all turn to black. You are floating on a sea of shadows, carried by the slow, steady tide of the medieval night. There is no hurry. There is no rush. There is only the stillness. The world outside is frozen in time. The frost is forming on the grass, a million tiny, crystalline structures growing in the silence. The stars are bright and cold in the sky, distant lanterns that you cannot see from within your timber walls. The village is a cluster of dark shapes, huddled together against the cold. Everyone is sleeping. Everything is at rest. You feel a final, deep wave of relaxation wash over you. It starts at your toes and moves slowly up your legs, through your chest, and into your mind. Your your shoulders drop. You are a vessel of quietude. The heavy wool is your armor. The straw is your earth. The darkness is your rest. The environmental challenge begins with the very walls that surround you. A medieval cottage is not a building in the modern sense. It is a refined piece of the landscape. The wattle and daub walls, the oak crook beams, and the layers of straw thatch are all materials pulled directly from the local woods and fields. This creates a dwelling that is in a constant state of slow, organic decay and renewal. The air inside is never truly still. There is a persistent draft that moves through the gaps in the daub, a slow, cold finger of air that reminds you of the world outside. The floor is the earth, packed down until it is as hard as stone, yet it always retains a faint, damp chill. In our time, we analyze a building by its efficiency and its isolation from the elements. In the medieval world, the building is a filter, not a barrier. The soot that coats the rafters, which we might see as a sign of poor ventilation, is actually a vital preservative. It hardens the wood, protects it from rot, and keeps the insects at bay. The smoke that fills the room is a constant, irritating presence. Yet, it is also the mechanism that allows the house to endure for decades. This is the first lesson of medieval survival, acceptance of the trade-off. To have the warmth of the fire, you must accept the sting of the smoke. To have the shelter of the thatch, you must accept the scuttle of the mice. There is no such thing as a perfect environment. There is only a functional one. Now, consider the physical challenge. The medieval body exists in a state of chronic low-level depletion. In our analytical view, we see a diet that is high in fiber and complex carbohydrates, but often lacking in essential fats and vitamins. The pottage and the maslin bread provide the raw calories needed for labor, but they do not provide the vitality we are accustomed to. Your body feels heavy. Your joints ache with a dull, persistent throbbing that begins in the early morning and only subsides in the deep of the night. This is the physical cost of the medieval day. Every task is manual. There is no mechanical advantage. When you move a stone, you feel the full weight of that stone in your spine. When you grind grain, you feel the resistance of the millstone in your shoulders. Over the years, this labor shapes the body, hardening the skin and thickening the bone. But it also wears it down with a gravitational persistence. A modern human might look at this and see hardship, but a medieval human sees life. There is no expectation of a body that feels light or effortless. The body is a tool, and like any tool, it is expected to be used until it is spent. Survival depends on not resisting this wear and tear. but on moving within it, finding a rhythm that allows the work to continue day after day, year after year. The third pillar, and perhaps the most important, is the psychological challenge. This is where the modern mind would struggle the most. We live in an era of infinite choice and radical autonomy. We believe we are the masters of our own destiny. In the medieval world, choice is a rare and heavy burden. Your life is dictated by your birth, your lord, and your faith. You do not choose a career. You fulfill a role. You do not choose where to live. You belong to the soil. To a modern human, this lack of choice feels like a prison. To a medieval human, it is a structure. It is the invisible bracing that prevents the mind from wandering into the dangerous territory of what if. By removing choice, the medieval world removes the anxiety of decision-making. You do not worry if you are in the right job or if you are living your best life. You are living the only life available, and there is a profound, quiet peace in that certainty. The boredom of the medieval day, the endless repetition of the same tasks, the same meals, and the same prayers is the very thing that keeps the psyche stable. It is a predictable, circular existence that matches the turning of the seasons. We must also analyze the role of time. In the 21st century, time is a linear arrow, always rushing forward, always being measured and sold. In the 13th century, time is a circle. The sun rises and sets. The moon waxes and wanes. The seasons rot and bloom. This circular perception of time changes how you experience your own life. You are not falling behind. You are simply moving through a phase of the cycle. When the winter is long and the grain is low, you do not feel the frantic urge to fix it. You wait. You endure. You understand that the spring is a physical certainty, just as the winter was. This patience is a form of survival. It allows the mind to rest even when the stomach is empty. The environmental challenges, the physical wear, and the social obligations are all held together by the framework of belief. We have explored the church and the bells, but analytically, we must see religion as the ultimate cognitive tool. It provides a why for every what. When a child is lost to the ague, or when the harvest is ruined by a late frost, the medieval mind does not collapse into nihilism. It fits the tragedy into a larger, divine narrative. It sees the suffering as meaningful. This ability to find meaning in discomfort is the secret to medieval resilience. It is the psychological armor that protects the soul from the jagged edges of reality. In our journey, we have seen how the medieval night is a time of absolute darkness. In our analytical view, this darkness is a necessary part of the human rhythm. Without artificial light, the brain is allowed to sink into a deep, hormonal rest that we rarely achieve today. The silence of the night is not empty. It is a restorative space where the mind can process the physical toll of the day. The first sleep and the second sleep are not signs of a broken schedule. They are a natural, rhythmic response to the environment. The wakefulness in the middle of the night is a time for quiet reflection, for prayer, and for a slow, internal sorting of the self. It is a gift of time that has been stolen from us by the light bulb. Survival in this world depended on the total acceptance of the given. You accept the cold. You accept the smoke. You accept the Lord. You accept the silence. By accepting these things, you remove the friction between yourself and the world. You move like water around the stones of your life. A modern human, trying to survive a day in the Middle Ages, would likely exhaust themselves by fighting the environment, trying to make it cleaner, warmer, faster, and more fair. The medieval human survives by becoming the environment. As we sit here in the fading light of our thoughts, we can see that the medieval world was not a place of drama or excitement for those who lived in it. It was a place of profound, slow-moving consistency. It was a world of textures, the grain of the wood, the weave of the linen, the grit of the flower. It was a world where every object had a weight and every action had a consequence. It was a world that demanded a level of presence and patience that is almost alien to us now. The physical, mental, and environmental challenges of this time were immense, but they were also the very things that created a sense of groundedness. In the absence of distractions, the medieval person was deeply connected to the reality of their own existence. They were connected to the earth through their labor, to their neighbors through their obligations, and to the cosmos through their faith. This connectivity is the hallmark of the medieval condition. It is a life that is heavy with meaning, even if it is light on comfort. The fire in your cottage is now just a collection of glowing embers, a deep, pulsing red that illuminates the dust motes dancing in the air. The silence is absolute. The others are sleeping, their breaths creating a slow, rhythmic counterpoint to the ticking of the house. You feel the weight of the wool blankets pressing you down into the straw. You feel the cool air on your forehead and the warmth of the blankets on your chest. In this moment, as you drift toward sleep, you can let go of the analytical mind. You can let go of the how and the why. You are simply a human being, resting in the same way that humans have rested for 1,000 years. The challenges of the day are over. The work of the fields is paused. The hunger is a quiet, manageable hum. You are at the center of the circle, and the circle is still. The medieval night is holding you. It is a vast, ancient darkness that knows nothing of your modern worries. It is a darkness that has seen empires rise and fall, yet it remains unchanged. It is the same darkness that fell over the peasants of the 13th century, providing them with the same sanctuary and the same rest. You are a part of this history. You are a part of this stillness. As you close your eyes, the images of the medieval world begin to soften and fade. The stone church, the wooden plow, the iron cauldron, they all dissolve into a gentle, gray mist. The texture of the rye bread and the scent of the wood smoke are memories now, drifting away like the smoke from the hearth. There is no more labor to perform. There are no more obligations to fulfill. There is only the long, slow, boring beauty of the night. The house settles one last time, a soft wooden sigh that echoes in the quiet. The embers fade from red to a dull, dusty gray. The frost patterns on the window parchment are beautiful and complex, a silent art created by the cold. You are safe. You are warm. You are still. You are drifting, moving away from the analysis and into the experience. You are moving away from the words and into the silence. The medieval world has given you its final lesson, the lesson of the long, slow rest. You are sinking into the mattress, your mind as calm as the winter fields under the moon. There is a quiet dignity in this physical adaptation. The body did not fight the environment. It merged with it. When you feel the roughness of your own linen or the firmness of the straw beneath you, you are not feeling a discomfort. You are feeling the reality of the world. The medieval person understood that life required a certain thickness of spirit and a certain toughness of flesh. This was not a burden. It was a state of being. It allowed them to stand in the freezing rain or the burning sun and feel a sense of belonging. They were not fragile observers of nature. They were a part of the ecology. As you breathe in the cool, still air of the room, feel your own body settling. Your muscles, like the muscles of the plowman, are letting go of the day's tension. You don't need to be productive now. You don't need to solve any problems. You only need to exist, just as the medieval person existed in the quiet hours between the sunset and the dawn. Your body knows how to rest. It has a memory of this stillness that goes back 1,000 years. The architecture of acceptance. We have looked at the timber-framed houses, the smoke-filled rooms, and the hard dirt floors. To a modern eye, these are signs of poverty. But to the medieval eye, they were signs of stability. The house was not an investment or a status symbol. It was a shell. It was a place where the family gathered around the fire, the single most important technology of the human story. The fire was the sun brought indoors. It was the source of light, heat, and cooked food. The adaptation of the mind to this limited space was a form of psychological health, because the world outside the door was vast, dark, and often dangerous. The interior of the house became a sacred sanctuary. The smallness of the room created a sense of intimacy that we have largely lost. You were never truly alone. You were always within earshot of the breathing of your family and the sighing of your livestock. This constant presence of life provided a profound sense of security. You were a part of a small, breathing community that moved in unison. The medieval mind did not yearn for more space. It found depth within the space it had. The soot on the rafters was not dirt. It was the history of every meal ever shared. The gaps in the walls were not flaws. They were the way the house breathed with the seasons. Survival depended on this shift in perspective. If you can find beauty in the flickering shadow of a rushlight, you can find peace anywhere. As you lie in the darkness of your own room, try to find that same contentment. The darkness is not empty. It is a space for your mind to expand and rest. The rhythmic mind, one of the most profound adaptations of the medieval world, was the internal clock. Without the artificial pressure of minutes and seconds, the medieval person lived by the rhythm of the task. A job took as long as a job took. You could not rush the bread to rise, you could not rush the grain to grow, and you could not rush the winter to end. This created a mental state of flow that is rare in the 21st century. When you spend hours performing a repetitive task like weeding a row of beans or spinning wool into yarn, your mind enters a meditative state. The repetition becomes a lullaby. The medieval world was a world of these slow, rhythmic cycles. The sound of the flail on the threshing floor, the clack of the loom, the tolling of the church bell, these were the metronomes of life. They calmed the nervous system. They grounded the spirit. Think about the silence again. It is not a void. It is a heavy, restorative substance. In the medieval night, the silence was so thick you could almost hear the stars. This silence allowed the brain to decompress in a way that we find difficult to achieve. There was no information overload. There was only the sound of the wind, the fire, and the heart. Adaptation meant learning to love this silence, to find it comforting rather than frightening. As you listen to the quiet of your own home, try to sink into it. Let the silence be a weight that holds you down, keeping you safe and still. The gift of the seasons in our modern life. We live in a perpetual, climate-controlled summer. We have the same fruits in January as we do in July. But the medieval person lived in a world of profound seasonal change. They adapted their entire existence to the tilt of the earth. In the summer, they were creatures of the light, working long, grueling hours, and sleeping little. In the winter, they became creatures of the dark. They hibernated. They spent long hours by the fire, telling stories, mending tools, and sleeping for 10 or 12 hours at a time. This seasonal adaptation is a natural human need that we often ignore. The medieval person did not feel unproductive in the winter. They understood that it was a time for the earth and the body to rest. They moved with the energy of the world. When the days grew short, their spirits grew quiet. When the days grew long, their spirits rose. There is a deep peace in this alignment. You are not a machine that must run at the same speed all year round. You are a biological being, and like the medieval peasant, you are allowed to slow down when the light fades. Tonight, you are in your own winter. The day is over, and the light is gone. You are allowed to hibernate. You are allowed to let the world outside continue without you. You don't need to plan for tomorrow. Tomorrow will come with its own light and its own tasks. For now, there is only the shadow, and the rest, the absence of the future. Perhaps, the most challenging adaptation for a modern human to understand is the medieval lack of future anxiety. We spend much of our lives worrying about what will happen in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. We worry about our careers, our savings, and our legacy. But for a medieval peasant, the future was largely a repetition of the past. Your life would look much like your father's life, and your children's lives would look much like yours. While we might see this as a lack of progress, it was also a lack of stress. There was no pressure to become someone else. You were already who you were meant to be. This allowed for a level of presence that is almost impossible for us to imagine. The medieval person was not living for the weekend or for retirement. They were living for the bowl of pottage in front of them and the warmth of the fire on their shins. They lived in a world of now. Adaptation meant finding fulfillment in the immediate texture of life. The sweetness of a fresh apple, the smell of rain on dry earth, the feeling of a clean linen shirt, these were the peaks of experience. By narrowing the focus, the medieval world deepened the experience. As you prepare for sleep, try to narrow your own focus. Don't think about next week or even tomorrow morning. Think only about the feeling of the pillow against your cheek. Think only about the weight of your limbs. Be here, in the now, just as the people of the past were. The final stillness, the fire in our medieval cottage, has now burned down to a few glowing jewels buried in the ash. The room is almost completely dark. The breathing of the family has become slow and synchronized, a soft, rhythmic tide that fills the space. The animals in the byre are silent. The world outside is a vast, silver landscape of frost and starlight. As we conclude this series, I want you to feel a sense of connection to these people. They were not primitive versions of us. They were a different expression of humanity. They were masters of endurance, masters of patience, and masters of the slow life. They found a way to be whole in a world that was often cold and hungry. They found a way to be quiet in a world that was governed by the sun and the stars. We can learn from their adaptation. We can learn that comfort is not the same as peace. We can learn that silence is not the same as loneliness. And we can learn that rest is not a luxury, but a fundamental, sacred part of being human. The medieval world has much to teach us about the beauty of the boring, the value of the repetitive, and the profound importance of the dark. You are lying in your bed now, and the history of the world is a long, slow river that flows beneath you. You are a part of that river. The same stars that looked down on the medieval village are looking down on you. The same darkness that provided them with a sanctuary is providing one for you. You are safe in the hands of time. I want you to imagine the medieval person one last time. They are tucked deep into their straw, the heavy wool blankets pulled high. Their mind is empty of the modern world's noise. They are listening to the wind in the thatch. They are feeling the warmth of the person sleeping next to them. They are perfectly, completely at rest. They are not waiting for anything. They are simply there now. Let yourself be there too. Let the weight of your body sink further into the mattress. Feel your breath becoming slower, deeper, and more rhythmic. The world is vast, but your space is small and safe. The night is long, but you have all the time you need. There is nothing left to say. There is nothing left to do. The journey is over. The series is complete. The history is written in the silence. Slowly, very slowly, let the images of the medieval world fade away. The timber beams, the iron pot, the stone church, let them dissolve into the soft, gray mist of your subconscious. They are memories now, part of the ancient, quiet library of your mind. You are moving away from the light, away from the voice, and into the deep, dreamless center of the night. The silence is absolute. The darkness is total. The rest is here. You are drifting. You are sinking. You are still. The cycle is complete. The fire is out. The world is asleep. Good night, traveler. Good night. Rest now. Rest. Rest.